Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar on Desi diets, balancing tradition and health to tackle pre-diabetes in India. I am Divya, and it's my pleasure to be your host for this insightful session. Now, today we're addressing a topic that is increasingly relevant in our fast changing world, the intersection of traditional Indian diets and the rising tide of pre-diabetes. India, a nation known for its rich culinary heritage, is also grappling with a growing diabetes crisis. With over 77 million people currently living with diabetes and many more at risk, understanding how our traditional diets can be both a blessing and a challenge is crucial. Now, in this session, we'll dive into how the very foods that have been a part of our culture for generations can be adapted to support better health. We'll explore the delicate balance between maintaining our cherished culinary traditions and also making necessary adjustments to prevent and manage prediabetes. Now, our panel of distinguished experts who brings a wealth of knowledge in nutrition, endocrinology, and public health will share practical advice on how to enjoy the flavors of our Desi diets while keeping our blood sugar levels in check. Whether you're a healthcare professional, a nutrition enthusiast, or someone looking to make a healthier choice, this webinar is designed to provide you with valuable insights. Now, let me quickly introduce you to our amazing panel. We have Dr. Shashank Joshi, consultant endocrinologist, 𝗗𝗶𝗀𝗶𝗺𝗏 Hospital and Joshi Clinic in Mumbai. We have Dr. Prof.S.V.Madhu, who is a Director Professor, Department of Endocrinology, Center for Diabetes in University College of Medical Sciences and GTB Hospital, Delhi. And we have Dr. V. Mohan, Chairman and Chief of Diabetology, Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Specialty Center in Chennai. So, without further ado, let us dive into today's topic and discover how we can balance tradition and health to tackle pre-diabetes in India. Now, Dr. Shashank Joshi, let us begin with you. Now, how do you think is Indian diet a concern for pre-diabetes?
Divyaji, first of all, thank you for having me and having this very pertinent topic. The Indian diet is very high on carb and fat and very low on protein. And that is why it becomes a recipe for development of pre-diabetes or diabetes. And that is how there is a linkage between that. And as we have rapidly gone through a transition phase, we have become very sedentary. So this diet, which was traditionally an agrarian diet, which was meant for agriculturists and farmers, became a staple diet of urban India. And that has really led to this switch. We did a STAR study and subsequently Dr. Mohan did the ICMR in-depth study. And it has clearly shown that a large proportion of Indians are predisposed because of the high carb, high fat, low protein diet. That's the traditional Indian diet and that predilects us to development of prediabetes.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. S.V. Madhu, coming to you, for someone who already has pre-diabetes, can we make, the traditional Indian foods a part of their healthy diet?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here again. And while Dr. Shashank Joshi has stressed on the negative aspects of what, because of the change of culture, the traditional Indian diet itself has become, diabetogenic in a way. There are several aspects of the traditional Indian diet before this so-called westernization or modernization has occurred, which are actually good. And these aspects can be leveraged even in a pre-diabetic to see that, the progression of pre-diabetes to diabetes can be reversed or at least, delayed. For example, there are several aspects in the diet. Most of the traditional diets have been recommending whole grains in their diet, carbohydrate rich, certainly, but the carbohydrates have been complex in nature in the past. We've been moving over the years to more simple carbohydrates, which are actually more harmful. And the second important thing is the use of millets in the traditional diets have been one of the hallmarks of the traditional Indian diet, which we could again leverage. And there has been a thrust in the recent years in the use of millets. And the two things can actually help a pre-diabetic board of diabetes for several years. Then the use of spices, the use of combination foods, for example, pulses and the cereals, as a part of traditional Indian diet, the thali concept to in a way control the portions. All these aspects of the traditional Indian diet, I feel, are important and could definitely help the pre-diabetic patient or an individual.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Madhu. Can we also say, like, with the coming of the supermarkets, a regular, person, at least from the urban scenario, will end up going to a supermarket and used to these. Now we have millets more readily available and starch millets and, all the other complex grains. But earlier we had primarily shifted to just wheat and stuff which was readily available, which again
Exactly.
was not traditionally how we have been across, centuries. It's just been a more of a modernization of the culture that we have been following.
Yeah,
And
that's what I say when I say it is leveraging. When we say leveraging, we should make available the healthy food choices. We should make available the millets because should make available the whole grains and the food choices and recipes out of them as well.
absolutely, and also as you said, I think that was lovely, the whole idea of having a full blown thali. Now, in our regular setting, we can just start off with fruits and stuff, but in a thali, the dessert always comes in the end, and we start with the savory stuff. And I think those little things go a long way as far as when we say our traditional diet. Probably we're not really talking about how it was traditionally, it's just what it exists in today's scenario.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, Dr. Mohan, coming to you, what are some traditional Indian foods that are beneficial for managing blood sugar?
Part of it, I think, first of all, thank you, Devaji, for having me on this program. As Dr. Madhu has very nicely said, and before that, Dr. Joshi, it's not that Indian diets are bad. It's just that they have got refined. And part of this is because the traders want to keep these foodstuffs longer in their stores. You take rice, for example. For centuries, we have been taking rice. But today we say that rice is one of the causes of diabetes and is actually linked to diabetes. So people keep asking, but then for centuries they've been taking what happened? The rice that we used to take prior to say 1960s and so on was the hand pounded rice or the whole grain, which is also called as brown rice. With the mills, 1970s, there were only 29 rice mills in India. Today, there are more than 2 lakh rice mills in India. That just shows how much of the milling is taking place. When you mill the brown rice and take off all the husk and bran and everything, you get the pure white rice. It looks very nice, stays longer in the stores. It also tastes good, but it's just carbohydrate. It's just like taking glucose. So that is the change which has happened. So suppose we go back to our hand pounded rice or to our brown rice or whole wheat or millets as was mentioned, then Indian diets are not bad at all. Point about the low protein was mentioned by Dr. Joshi. We are not taking enough protein at all. All we take is lots of carbs. His study and our studies have shown that. And then the next thing that we take is a lot of fat, lot of oil, lot of ghee, lot of fat. The protein part, particularly for vegetarians, is very low. At least for non-vegetarian, they get some fish or chicken or egg. But if you're a pure vegetarian, to get protein itself is very difficult, and protein is the one which not only helps to control the sugar, increases the fiber, prevent pre-diabetes and even reverse pre-diabetes, and that we are not getting enough in our food. So if we think of morning, afternoon, night, where is my protein? We talked about the thali. So on that thali, where is my protein? If you ask that simple question, where is that protein, and cut down the carbohydrate, then even the traditional diets are good enough to control pre-diabetes or even to reverse it.
Right, absolutely. And I think the solution probably also lies in serving up a variety in a regular household. If for breakfast, instead of pancakes, if we are having chila, which is like
Yes.
the Indian, version of the savory pancake, so to say, then
Correct.
that will be high on protein vis-a-vis a regular pancake, which is just carbs and just oil.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, coming to you, Dr. Shashank Joshi, now, how do you think people can modify traditional recipes to make them healthier for pre-diabetes? I hope you will not find this a very chefish kind of a question.
No, I think it's a very good question. It's important to integrate traditional recipes in our daily culture. And you very rightly said that, moving away from the pancake, moving away from fast foods, moving away to made to order foods is first thing is that cook at home and cook what your grandparents made. So what your grandma made is probably the best food for you. And with that, do a little bit of physical activity. I think if we are able to do these two integrations, we will get the perfect recipe to prevent prediabetes. The second thing is portion control, that we need to eat less because we are eating too much. When you make traditional Indian food, it is tasty and we tend to eat more. So controlling that is equally important. But the main question which you asked me is to make traditional recipes which will blunt the fast glucose rise. So if we, as Dr. Mohan said, we have made polished rice or polished grains, and refining of cereals actually has led to the rise of sugar very fast. And therefore we need to add fiber. We need to add a little bit of spice, a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of methi, a little bit of functional foods which actually will blunt the rise of glucose. And many of the traditional Indian millets have beta glucan. For example, Dr. Madhu made a very passing mention of millets. So if you add a little millet, add a little cinnamon, add a little methi or fenugreek in the flavor of the food, make it tasty, make it healthy, and ensure that the control is less. Don't push you to eat more food. Do a little physical activity with it. Then the traditional recipe will actually become like an anti-diabetic medication. And that is the key. So I think ensuring that the fiber is integrated, ensuring that some of our spices and herbs are integrated with our day-to-day normal traditional food is the key. But I think the first key is don't order food from your app. Cook food at home, make a little effort, add a little spice and tadka, add a little bit of the herb, add a little bit of cinnamon and fenugreek, add a little bit of that fiber, and that will make all the difference. And then with that, do a little bit of physical activity or yoga, and it will make the change. So I think it's very important that we give the right message that the good old traditional diet is not just diabetogenic, but it is actually anti-diabetogenic if you use it in the right proportions, in the right way, and integrate it with some physical activity.
Right. So, for example, if we talk about the South Indian food, if I can largely say so, in dosas we can mix more of dals. In idlis, probably we can add more of vegetables, and again try to go back to what are the
The idli
dadima and
example is
dadima
very
ki
good. If
recipe.
you have, instead of having two idlis and half vati sambar, if you have two vatis of sambar and half idli, that is far better because the sambar has all the protein in it and all the fiber in it. And therefore, mixing and matching is very crucial in the way we handle these, or having a
And
ragi dosa or a ragi idli.
I was
I
about to
have
say that. Instead
the
of having ordinary white rice dosa, we can have ragi dosa, millet
Ragi dosa,
dosa. They are
raga
very
idli.
healthy.
That's the milletization of food, and we had the global millet year just which got concluded. So I think that's the key.
And if I continue a little longer here, what is your opinion on regular oils vis-a-vis our our original ghee which used to be incorporated in the diet?
So that's a $1 billion question. You need to rotate oils. You need to cook in less oil, and it should be less than half kg per person per month.
Okay.
The olive oil is not the best oil for India. The Indian olive oil is actually the rice bran oil. We need to blend oils and rotate oils. And we have done studies on blending or rotating oils. But the key is cook in less oil. Okay. Reduce the amount of ghee which you are consuming. Have the perfect balance of MUFA, PFA, and saturated fatty acids. And ensure that you have less than half kg per person per month of oil consumption, so that, and try to ensure that you don't do deep frying, because it is the deep frying and reheating from oil which is very, very hazardous to heart health. And blending of oils, which is mixing two oils with 30-70 blends or 50-50 blends or 80-20 blends, and there's double blending now, there's triple blending now with a backbone of rice bran oil, is the key.
Right.
So this is how we have to understand that our cooking practices also need some changes, not just cooking in oil. Oil food which is cooked in oil is very tasty. Fried food kills fast, but fried food is very tasty and you tend to consume more. So it's important that you cook in less oil, cook in the right oil, rotate oil, and or use blended oils.
And also probably if possible go back to what our the regional wisdom was, eat food and the oils which are from your particular region, because that
Absolutely,
has been
absolutely,
assimilated in your space.
absolutely, Divya. You said
Yeah.
it right.
Okay, now coming to Dr. Madhu, sir, what role does portion control play in managing pre-diabetes with a traditional diet?
Thank you. I think Dr. Shashank Joshi did make a passing reference to the need for portion control. So I think upfront we need to say that while the traditional Indian diet has several good aspects and several beneficial aspects in terms of prediabetes and diabetes, I think the key is portion control. And as again stressed by Dr. Joshi, since the food is tastier and if we don't have a tab on the portion sizes and the amounts that we eat, the same food which initially considered very good would turn out to be counterproductive and result actually become diabetogenic in a way. So I think portion control is most essential, and there is an absolute need to inculcate portion control while consuming Indian traditional diets. And I think a thali is a good way of looking at portion control, and in fact even implementing the portion control idea. And if we were to look at the traditional thali itself, then what we could easily say and advise our patients or individuals who have pre-diabetes is that half of the plate or the thali, whatever you consume, should be vegetables and fruits, preferably vegetables which are non-starchy, particularly the green vegetables and any other vegetable, but definitely not the starchy ones. And then the remaining 50% you divide into two portions, let's say, and one of which could be protein. Either if you're a non-vegetarian, it could be lean meat. If you're a vegetarian, it could be milk, dals, or cheese, or any other protein source that is available. So at least to ensure that 20%, 5% of your thali is giving some protein. The other two panelists did stress on the need for protein in our diets, particularly for vegetarians. And of course, you need to also inculcate addition of spices and certain beneficial traditional Indian foods, as was stressed by Dr. Joshi. And actually, the traditional way of cooking did have this. We had a lot of haldi, ginger, we had coriander, we had several other spices, even fenugreek, for example, as part of the diet. And if you have a fair sprinkling of that in the portions that you consume, again, it's important. Milk and curd, prebiotic, was also an important part as a content. So I think portion control, and if particularly with rice, it's a problem. Unless you're very very clear about the portion that you eat. Chapatis, you can say 1, 2, medium size, small size, and so on. But for rice, which is a part of traditional South Indian diets in particular, you need to be very careful about the amount that you consume, and that can be controlled by use of thali and making a conscious effort to restrict the amounts that we eat.
Absolutely. And I don't know if I can make this observation. What has also changed is the way we eat. Once upon a time, again, a couple of generations back, we used to sit down. The eating used to be sitting down on the floor, crossing your legs. And I think the posture was one thing which led to eating in control. Now, today, there's a big fashion of going for buffets. You're sitting on the table and, one after the other, you keep on getting foods being served on the table. And then, of course, there is no control because it is being associated with either watching television or conversations. Earlier, meal times used to be only meal times. So I think
Yes.
time had a cap, and hence the portions automatically kind of got controlled.
Also, partly mindful eating also refers to this in a way, because when you're focused on your eating, then you know how much to eat, what to eat, and the fact that you're only focused on eating at that time. And as you said, while you're watching TV, or you don't realize how much you've consumed, and therefore the portion sizes unconsciously, become double or triple of what you would have otherwise wanted. So I think mindful eating and setting up time for eating separately, eating together, I think all these things are habits good to nurture, and indirectly would help portion size control.
Absolutely. And again, a reminder that we must move back to our roots rather than, remaining in this space where we have come to. Dr. Mohan, next question to you. Of course, we have touched upon spices, but are there any specific spices that or herbs also in Indian cuisine that can help with the blood sugar control per se?
There have been a lot of studies. Some of them are quite convincing studies. For example, the data on fenugreek is very robust. It has
Okay.
come from the National Institute of Nutrition study after study showing that it increases the fiber content, reduces the postprandial glucose levels, and they've also worked out the mechanism of action, how it reduces insulin resistance. So on fenugreek, the data is very solid. There's also quite a lot of data on cinnamon, which as an addition has helped to control diabetes. There are randomized clinical trials, fairly good, robust evidence. Cardamom to some extent. Turmeric, a little bit more generic. It helps in anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, many other benefits. Effects on diabetes, not that much shown, but too many benefits not to ignore turmeric. We have things like 𝗗𝗶𝗀𝗶𝗺𝗏, bitter gourd, which of course it's a vegetable, but still as an addition, if you add that, there are some anti-diabetic drugs, a lot of hype regarding it also, but there are some anti-diabetic properties also shown. Even simple things like black pepper have been shown to decrease the glucose levels. So I think a combination, I think the Indian diet, the traditional way that we were eating, had all these things put into it. After all, in our curries, we always have turmeric. We always have some cinnamon and cardamom added on. Even if you take kheer or something, there's always cardamom and things added on to that. So everything was made a little bit more spicy, and that spice not only helps in lowering the glucose level, but also helps in digestion and in many other ways. So there is no doubt that the traditional spices, herbs, they're all very good, but more data is needed, because sometimes people hype it and say that is enough and you don't need anti-diabetic drugs, just add this and everything is done, which is not really correct. You have to do randomized clinical trials, but when you start doing them in a controlled manner, you do find that there are some advantages. I just wanted to make a small correction in the first statement that you made, that there were 77 million people with diabetes. Those numbers have changed. The ICMR NDIAB study last year showed it's now 101 million people with diabetes. That's a significant jump. And since we're talking about pre-diabetes, it's 136 million people with pre-diabetes. So if you add both together, it's 237 million. So the number of people with pre-diabetes is actually more than diabetes. You may say, well, how is it relevant to this discussion? We shouldn't just be talking about controlling diabetes. No, because pre-diabetes, especially in Indians, it's been shown again, it's been shown in India, it's been shown in Indians in the UK, shown everywhere. We have the fastest conversion from pre-diabetes to diabetes than any other race. If you compare with the Chinese or the Japanese or the white population, we are the one. That means if you have pre-diabetes, it doesn't stay there long. Within a year or two, you're going to convert to diabetes. Imagine if all those 136 million people have diabetes, your diabetes numbers are going to go so high. And also remember that in pre-diabetes, the risk for heart disease is already there. Just like you have diabetes, you may not get eye or kidney complications, which are the prerogative of a diabetic to get, a person with diabetes to get. But pre-diabetes, they're as prone to heart disease. So this discussion is very, very relevant, and even more relevant because it's in pre-diabetes where diet plays such an important part. Not that in diabetes it's not important, but in diabetes you need also medication, you need all other things. In pre-diabetes, just with this, the diet what we're talking about today, with, as Dr. Joshi mentioned, physical activity, and also Joshi has his formula of sleeping well and smiling and all, is the Joshi formula is there. If you follow all that, that may be enough to prevent diabetes. And then one more point which Dr. Madhu has just published, a big yoga study showing that by yoga you can prevent diabetes. So large study from India just published a week ago. So there are a lot of things you can do in pre-diabetes along with the diet, and they're not competitive to each other. They are complementary to each other. I thought I should just add that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for pointing that out. And it's, again, I think it's a reminder for all of us that in our kitchens, it is very important to have that masale ka dabba. How our, again, the dadis, nanis, even our parents have had it, like full-fledged proper. The ground masalas are separate and the whole masalas are separate, which, of course, cinnamon is a big part of it, cardamom, all these things are a big part of it. Every time you end the meal, you end it with sauce and turmeric. Now it's come back as turmeric latte. But of course, we have, I think, always slept with haldi ka doodh. Since when we were small, that used to be the thing. Oh, you've gotten hurt somewhere, have haldi ka doodh. And so I guess going back to our traditions is the best thing that we can do. Now, Dr. Shashank, let us talk about sweet things now. Desserts are also extremely integral part of our traditional Indian diets. Now, if a person is pre-diabetic, now should he or she completely, have their meals devoid of any desserts? What is the way to go?
Divyaji, this is the most difficult question because, depriving somebody of anything creates a tendency to rebel.
Craving.
If I tell you not to do something, then it will actually be counterproductive. So you should not deprive anybody of anything. That is the first principle in medicine. And I think the desserts are very crucial for a part of a traditional Indian cuisine. So if you are wanting to prevent pre-diabetes or diabetes, then you need to ensure that I have a philosophy of taste and share. So if you want to really, you have pre-diabetes, you have diabetes, you can taste and share. So I say that don't deprive yourself of the sensorial pleasure of the dessert, but taste and share. It's very crucial to understand this philosophy. And also remember that desserts come in different varieties. We have our traditional desserts, and then we have the processed desserts. So do not have any packaged dessert. Any packaged food, any ultra processed food is going to be detrimental, is going to be detrimental to health. One of the reasons we are having an explosion of pre-diabetes and diabetes, like Dr. Mohan said, Dr. Madhu said, is fundamentally because we have switched from our traditional foods to ultra processed foods. And therefore, in the dessert context, it is very important to recognize that have less, have it slowly, and compound it with physical activity. That's number one. Number two, the desserts. The other question people ask me is, let me cook it in sugar substitutes, because
Yeah.
now we have sugar substitutes available. Popularly, they are also called as artificial sweeteners. And people say sugar is the next poison. It is equal to tobacco, just like sitting is the next smoking. And they have all these scary connotations to it. So, according to me, depriving is not correct. Even when we do now, right now, Shravan is going on, and there are different religious festivals. We give prasadam. Whether
Yeah.
you go to a church, you go to a mosque, or whether you go to a Hindu temple, they will give prasad. Prasad is usually sweet. Okay. So tasting it like a prasad, small quantity, is something which we do not say no, and then it has to be adjusted with the total caloric.
Yes.
If you use it with a sugar substitute, it is reasonable to have it once in a while, but not have it every day. Okay. The third thing is fruits. Fruits, one fruit per day is allowed except chiku, mango, bananas. And if you have it in a portion control and have it as a mid-meal snack rather than taking it immediately after food, then probably it will not cause the sugar spike which we expect. Because if you eat your food as breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then have the dessert immediately after that, the sugar spike is going to be high. But if you do it, and if you really have a sweet tooth and you just can't control it, you're addicted to it, because remember, the receptor in the brain for sugar and cocaine is the same. So it's very addictive. Desserts are very addictive. So what we recommend is that have it as a mid-meal snack. Have it like prasad. Control, taste and share it with others. Okay, so that you can actually distribute and reduce it. If you get a box of mithai and you remove a pedha or a barfi, then you just cut it into multiple pieces and share it with everybody around and taste a small piece of it. So don't deprive anybody of the sensorial pleasure of sweet, because Indians traditionally are sweet people, and therefore we should not deprive them, but try to ensure that you do what Dr. Madhu rightly said, portion control, and try to have it slowly, try to integrate it with physical activity, and do not make it like an addiction. Don't eat too much, and that is the key. So I'm not saying that desserts should not be given. We say that we avoid them. If at all you have to take them, take it in mid meals and ensure that they are a part of the total calorie equation and the carbohydrate equation. The only problem with desserts is that they are simple sugars. They are
Right.
not complex sugars. And therefore, in the traditional Indian sweets, if we add fibers and probably switch the sugar with a sugar substitute, it may be reasonable.
Right. And now here again, see what has changed today is when we go out, we get served these big slices of cake. Now, cake is only carbs and oil and such things. While again, if we go back a little bit, we used to have laddus of various varieties. And again, now as you mentioned, Karela juice also, I just can't help but mention Bombay here. Bombay has this culture of having Karela juice being served on small thelas. Right in the morning, if you walk out, you will have Loki juice, Karela juice, fenugreek juice, the kind of juice you want to mention around all the gardens. So people come out, they go for a walk, they have these all these healthy juices, which is amazing for them. And also you have this culture of having methi laddus and all these other laddus which probably once upon a time did not have sugar. So but the sugar used there was also, it was, I think, more of good was being used.
Jaggery, yeah.
So
Yeah.
jaggery is as bad as sugar. So then a sugar substitute is reasonable. And also remember, having all these type of juices are not scientifically validated. They may be very popular and they may be like a fashion statement. As Dr. Mohan was saying, this social media culture is so prevalent, but it is not a way of life. I'm also a Mumbaiker,
Yeah.
and you go out there and have a juice. Sometimes the juices are worse. Having the fruit is far better, because what happens when you make a juice, you are actually cutting out all the fiber and converting it into water, and actually have taken away all the juice which is nutritionally correct from
Hmm.
that little fruit or substance which you are doing. So scientifically, it is not the best thing to do.
Okay.
You have a false sense of well-being that you have consumed a lot of fenugreek juice, and but that's not really the right thing. And many of them get flavored. These flavors are artificial. They are chemicals. They are environmentally disrupting chemicals, and they also could be carcinogenic. So remember, take all this with a pinch of salt. These are not
Right.
scientifically valid things. This is not a way of life. The
And
way of
take
life is
yeah.
really to do physical activity, and whatever such popular habits are there, they are not conducive to a scientific environment. They need to go through the rigor of science, and then only we should say that they are a way of life. So I think I would take that with a pinch of salt. But I
Yeah.
want to make one more point. Drink water, drink free food which have low calories, have a little bit of buttermilk or chas, have a little bit of nimbu pani without sugar. Those are far more healthier than actually having all these type of juices which you are alluding to, which are pre-mixed. And this is probably the way to go. Having low calories. Low calorie is the key. No calorie is the key. And trying to ensure that we have a right lifestyle pattern is also the key.
Right. So this was actually my next question, which was for Dr. Madhu, that how does hydration impact blood sugar levels, and what are good hydration practices in general?
Okay. I think hydration is an integral part of balancing your blood sugar levels, and not only for a diabetic patient, and even at the pre-diabetic stage, for several reasons. If you don't take enough of water or fluid and are not well hydrated, your concentration of blood glucose automatically goes up. That goes without saying. And in fact, when the blood glucose levels in crosses a certain limit, it also passed into the urine, carries more water with it. So further dehydration. And if you don't compensate that by adequate hydration, your blood glucose keeps on rising. And the risen blood glucose sets off a vicious cycle, which promotes worsening of this high blood glucose into pre-diabetes to diabetes. So therefore, hydration is extremely important. Not only that, it's also been seen that when you have dehydration or less adequate hydration, the body tends to pull water from the tissues and the cells, what we call cellular dehydration. And this is supposed to set off again a chain of events within the tissues, which ultimately result in malfunctioning enzymes, that ultimately leads to worsening of the blood glucose levels, faster conversions of pre-diabetes to diabetes, and so on. In fact, I think a major study from the US over 4-year period showed that those who had less hydration in terms of increased osmolality levels over 4 years had a fourfold rise in conversion to diabetes. Therefore, in a pre-diabetic individual, I think hydration is absolutely critical. Now the question is, how do you implement hydration? How do you get hydrated? Best way, obviously, is to take water. That's the purest and the best way to take water. But apart from water, there are several other ways by which you could keep yourself hydrated. Some of which Dr. Joshi mentioned. You could take chas. You could take lime juice with salt. And several other simple drinks which are not bad in other words, or which are not sweetened. Avoid the carbonated water or drinks. Certainly not. That's not a source of hydration.
Hmm.
But apart from the drinks per se, we know we have to avoid fruit juices. The fruits and vegetables themselves are very good sources of water. For example, the green vegetables and the salads, the cucumber, for example, tomatoes, all these, when you consume, you're also ensuring adequate hydration levels. So don't just think it's water or one of those drinks that Dr. Joshi mentioned, but also consuming fruits and vegetables which have adequate water. Watermelon, for example, has a lot of water in it. So if you were to inculcate a habit of consuming the right fruits and vegetables, it will also keep you adequately hydrated, and you don't have to go into the unhealthy habit of certain fruit juices which might even be sweet and maybe counterproductive. So I think water, healthy consumption of fruits and vegetables, which are even otherwise very good for cardiovascular health, and certain drinks, as mentioned, chas and lime, for example. I think these are the ways to go about and avoid sweating. And especially in the season like this, certainly focus on hydration. And that will help pre-diabetic individual quite a lot.
Okay. Okay, now, Dr. Mohan, now can we talk about misconceptions? Now, you keep on meeting, patients very often. What are some of the most common misconceptions about managing pre-diabetes with the traditional Indian diet?
So there are many. For example, there is one myth, saying that a vegetarian diet is healthier than a non-vegetarian diet. Well, there is part truth in it, because we eat red meat, obviously it's carcinogenic and diabetogenic and so on. But what is a vegetarian? In India, a vegetarian means you don't eat fish, you don't eat meat, you don't eat egg, then you're a vegetarian. Okay, does it make it healthy? Absolutely not. You can eat mountains of rice, which is very bad. You can eat lots of chapatis, very bad. You can load yourself on ghee and oil, which is very bad. You may not, if you take the vegetables, you may wash the vegetable too much, cook the vegetables too much, destroying all the nutrients in that. Okay, the fruit, you don't take it as cut fruit, but you take it as fruit juice, and you think all this is very good, but actually it's bad for you. And we have just done a major study, just published it, looking at even cancer, whether it is less in vegetarians. Well, certain forms of cancer are less, but it doesn't mean that vegetarians don't get cancer or they don't get diabetes. In fact, heart disease, when we looked at, is probably as bad in the vegetarian, because it's taking so much of ghee and oil and all the wrong things, and too much of calories and too much of carbs, no protein, and too much of fat. So vegetarian diet need not be. In the West, a vegetarian diet means you're vegetarian, they eat a lot of salads. A Greek salad or some salad is their meal. That's it. For us, it's a side dish. Taking some tomato and cucumber is a side dish for us. For them, it's their meal, So when they are vegetarian, they're truly vegetarian, they're taking a lot of vegetables. I would say our vegetarian don't eat vegetables. So the term vegetarian itself is not correct. So that's the first misconception. So if you're a vegetarian, you should take a lot of salads, a lot of fruits, a lot of healthy things, cut down on oil, cut down on carbs, try to get your protein, then it is very good. That is the first misconception. Second misconception, especially if it comes from western part of India, is that milk is bad for you. And milk can produce diabetes, milk can produce pre-diabetes. Our studies are showing actually the opposite. Dairy is actually good for you. So dairy, milk, yogurt, particularly the cultured dairy products like yogurt, they are fantastic probiotics. They are very good. They actually prevent diabetes. They prevent heart disease. We have shown in long-term 15-year follow-up studies on 150,000 people followed up in 21 countries. Mortality is less in people who consume. So dairy has, and for Indians, for children, that's the only source of, milk is the cheapest and best after we had the white revolution. That's the best form. For pregnant and lactating women, what other source of protein for a vegetarian do they have? So I think milk is not at all a bad thing, and therefore you should take. Third thing is that all Indian foods are bad. And the third thing I would even say, we talked about millets. So, okay, millets will reduce your sugar levels. Millets are very good. I'm not arguing against that. They are even environmentally friendly. They take less water from the soil. For that one thing alone, we should promote millets, whereas rice and wheat take a lot of water from the soil, and groundwater is going down. But the millets in India are highly polished. So their glycemic index is just like rice. The old millets were good. We don't get them today in the market. Okay. The fourth myth about pre-diabetes is that you will never need medicines in pre-diabetes. Just diet and exercise is enough. Well, diet and exercise is enough in a lot of people, but there are some people who progress too fast to develop diabetes, as I mentioned. So sometimes you might need the help of medication also. Okay, and the next one is that walking alone is enough for preventing pre-diabetes. That's not so, because muscle training, if you improve your resistance power in your muscle, that is as good. So when you have, I call it as a FAR principle, FAR, F stands for flexibility. So you should be able to rotate and bend, and so that is flexibility. A is aerobics, walking, jogging, swimming, cycling, badminton, tennis, whatever. Not the things where we get the gold medals, or even not even gold medal, bronze medal in the Olympics. Where do we get the bronze medals? We stand without even moving and then shoot, and then we get. That is where we get. Why? Because our muscle power is not good. We are not having enough protein. So we should try to improve our protein intake in the diet. So I think if we have a balanced approach to life, we can prevent pre-diabetes in the first stage. And second thing is everything in moderation. There's nothing in extreme. If you follow anything, that's one of the things. Oh, milk is good, so drink too much of milk. If you drink more than 3 glasses of milk, your risk of prostate cancer goes up. So I just know only milk is good for you. But if you drink too much of it, then that's bad for you. Okay. So anything you do in excess is not good. So I think, as Buddha said, the middle path. Follow the middle path. You don't need to go to one extreme. You don't need to crave. This craving thing which Dr. Shashank was saying, it just reminded me of Adam and Eve. When you tell them don't take that apple, which apple did they eat? They ate only that apple. So it's not our fault now. Human beings have been like that from the time they were produced. Once you tell, I have people with diabetes who have never been fond of sweets at all till they got diabetes. They never eaten sweets. They're not fond of it. Then they'll come to me and they say, now I got diabetes. So they'll say, what do you think? Well, you can avoid sweets. So no more sweets for me, doctor. In my whole life, no more sweets. I'm gone. The guy has never eaten sweets. But the moment you told him sweets, then his whole mind is now fixated on that sweet. I can't have sweet. I can't have sweet. I can't have sweet. So never tell them, have a cheat day. Okay, Sunday have your sweet. Everything you allow them in moderation, it'll work much better rather than saying, not this, not that. We're not dictators. We are partners. Doctors, dietitians are all partners with the person. If you do that, you will get much better results.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now coming to Dr. Madhu. Now, Dr. Madhu, we have kind of, spoken about it, but still to put it more into a perspective, how does one make a conscious effort to manage their diet in pre-diabetes? If you could give us some steps or just pointers for our viewers to get it in this one question.
Yeah, I think we have discussed the content of what should be, what is a healthy diet and what are the possible choices and traditional Indian diets versus the modern diets and all that. But to make somebody actually follow it is the key step. Unless we do that, it doesn't work, especially at a country level, for example, or even at the individual level. So I think the most important thing, there are two or three things. First, you need to uh, create the awareness among pre-diabetic individuals that they are at risk. They already have a propensity and they can develop diabetes. And as Dr. Mohan was saying, Indians in particular would develop diabetes very soon, sooner than later. They also have a high cardiovascular risk. So these first step is awareness. Even though you may be symptomatically free, you may have no symptoms at this stage, yet this is a stage where it's a big opportunity which you would lose, and where you can, just by adhering to a certain kind of a diet and exercise schedule and maybe a drug here and there, you can prevent a major complication of diabetes, cardiovascular disease. This awareness needs to come. And I think in that respect, all of us are equal partners in trying to create that awareness: doctors, dietitians, paramedics, everybody, and the government per se. And I think the Endocrine Society has created Pre-Diabetes Day on the 14th of August, 3 months before the World Diabetes Day. 3 months before, because symbolically it says pre-diabetes comes first. If you do something here, you may not get diabetes. So that's the symbolism there. So this kind of awareness is required, number one. The second aspect, of course, is motivation, counseling, which we have to constantly indulge in, and talk to the individuals who have pre-diabetes, because they see, why should I do all this when I have nothing? It's just a value or a number that you're showing me and asking me to do so many things and curtail my diet in so many ways. But I think that's where the motivation and counseling is important. And we should stress upon them that these are healthy practices. These have been there all along in our tradition. And all we are saying is to move back to the old traditional ways and pick up the healthier parts of our traditional Indian diets, and do not take the unhealthy parts, and that will be the right mix along with the physical activity and yoga, as was stressed again and again. And that, I think, is the way to go forward and control the epidemic of diabetes from pre-diabetes.
Right. Now, Dr. Mohan, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to balance the traditional eating habits with the need to manage pre-diabetes? Somebody who already has pre-diabetes is what we're talking about.
So I think since they're just in the stage of pre-diabetes and not yet in the diabetes stage, there are certain things which we allow a little bit more for people with diabetes. For example, Dr. Joshi mentioned about 1 fruit per day. That's a very good thing after you get diabetes, because you take fruits contain fructose, which is again a form of sugar. So if you take 2-3 fruits, a person with diabetes, then that's not good. Person with pre-diabetes, on the other hand, can take 2 or 3 fruits because their bodies, they have more insulin in their body, and so they can take a little bit more. So they need not be as rigid as a person with diabetes. But what I tell people is, okay, one of the things which is going to determine whether you are going to progress to diabetes or revert back to normal or stay as pre-diabetes, at least it's a very minimal, at least stay there, is your body weight. So I tell people, you measure your body weight, you measure your body waist circumference, and see that if it is excessive, reduce it. If you do that, your chances of reverting back to normal and achieving remission is very high. So as long as they're able to do that, doesn't matter if they have, that they don't have to count their calories, take a cup of and pack it with rice. And while on that, I'd like to just mention on a lighter vein, I was trying to impress people with this cup of rice and saying this is that, because people eat mountains of rice. So I took a cup actually to a education class, and I said this is the amount of the cup that you should take, and you can take 2 cups of this. So somebody asked me, good, okay, doctor, so should I take this before food or after food? He said. He thought that's for me, as a medication part. Then my food is separate. This is for Dr. Mohan. I'm eating that much rice. Then I'll have my lunch later. So people don't understand that that is the amount that is allowed for them. But for somebody with pre-diabetes, if they're lean and they're normal weight, we don't have to measure so much about, because their sugar levels are not all that high. And once we explain to them that this is a golden chance for you to prevent lifelong medication, developing complications of diabetes, and motivating them, and be partners with them rather than sitting in a position of being a judge and saying, I am the judge, you're the person, you're the victim. Instead of taking that, if you take that as a partnership, one of the points that both of them mentioned is that you need to have somebody as a coach guiding them and saying, how many steps have you done today, sir? How is your diet, sir? Are you checking your sugar, sir? Have you got your 10,000 steps per day? That itself is enough to prevent progressing to diabetes.
Right, and I think in the past the mothers used to do it.
Yes.
Taking a check on how the day is going. So we need to remember, probably eat a little less outside, eat less of packaged foods, make more food in the house, and it will make you richer, not only as far as your bank balance is concerned, but also as far as your health goes. So that was a fantastic discussion. Thank you so much. I would like to thank our esteemed panelists here, Dr. Shashank, Dr. Madhu, and Dr. Mohan, for sharing their expertise and practical advice. And your insights remind us that managing diabetes is not just about avoiding certain foods, but about embracing a balanced and healthy lifestyle that can be sustainable and culturally meaningful. So, we hope all our viewers leave today with a renewed sense of purpose and a toolkit of strategies to help manage or prevent diabetes. Stay informed, stay proactive, and most importantly, stay healthy. Thank you so much.